Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Shirazi, a board certified dermatologist. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, I want to tell you about 7 things I would personally not do as a dermatologist based on my 15 years of clinical practice and seeing patients and seeing these pitfalls and mistakes that are done that I want to tell you about. So hopefully you don't make the same mistake and end up with the same issues. But before we get started, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe, and share this with a friend who might also find this valuable. Now, everyone's skin is different. That doesn't necessarily mean some of these things will happen to you, but it's good to be aware of it because as we go through time, our hormonal climate changes, our skin sensitivities change. People think, well, I've never had an issue before. I can never have an issue down the line. Wrong. Don't forget, your body is not a static object. It is a living human being that is constantly changing, and there's so many factors involved, and the skin is the largest organ. It's also very immunogenic, so it can be very hypersensitive to things. So just because you didn't have a problem with something 10 years ago or ever doesn't mean you won't necessarily have an issue. Tip number 1, I would never start my skincare routine before brushing my teeth. The reason being is a lot of people will do their skincare and then they'll brush their teeth, and what happens is you can get toothpaste that stays on your skin, and because toothpaste has fluoride in it, it can actually cause a reaction called perioral dermatitis. And you can check out this video that I did. It's all about it. It's somewhat of a cross between acne and eczema, but you get little red bumps all around your mouth. So you always want to first brush your teeth and then start your skincare routine with cleansing and doing your serums and exfoliating and so forth. So it's always better to start your skincare routine after you brush your teeth. Number 2, I would never put Juvederm, which is a hyaluronic acid filler. It's probably one of the most popular fillers on the market. I would never put it anywhere around my eyes. I wouldn't put it in the temples. I wouldn't put it in the cheeks. I wouldn't put it, definitely not under the eyes, not in the brows, not in the forehead, not in the cheeks. Don't put it anywhere in the upper face. The reason being, it's very hydrophilic. So what it does is it draws a lot of water. And what that does is it gives you baggy, puffy eyes. And long term, it really doesn't go away. It tends to move. I call Juvederm Moviderm because it is one of those fillers that's very cohesive, and it loves to migrate. So I would never use it in these areas. It's great for the lips because you do want your lips to be hydrated and plump, and it's fine to draw water into the lips, but not around your eyes. Number 3, I never apply retinoids right after cleansing. The reason being, anything you apply right after cleansing will get absorbed a lot more than if you wait or apply it after a moisturizer or some amount of time later. The best thing to apply right after cleansing are things like serums and creams that are hydrating and moisturizing, or things that are not irritating. So because retinoids are so powerful and they have the potential to cause redness and peeling, particularly in this area of the mouth, you don't ever want to apply it to damp skin right after cleansing. Now, you may be able to do that. Some people have really tough skin and they may be able to tolerate it. Or if you're using a very mild retinoid that's not like a really strong prescription grade, then fine, you can probably get away with it. In fact, it might not be a bad idea if you're using a weak retinoid to apply it right after cleansing. But if you're on a potent, particularly a prescription retin-A, it can have a lot of side effects. And by applying it right after cleansing into damp skin, you're gonna get more absorption, which means you might also get more side effects such as irritation, peeling, dryness. Number 4, I never scratch my bug bites. And the reason being, if you scratch them, then you're gonna cause scarring. It gets hard, it gets knotty, gets embedded in the skin, and it forms something called a dermatophyte. dermatofibroma. Dermatofibromas are extremely difficult to remove. They tend to come up on the arms and legs. They're very common, but the key is not to touch them, especially when they first come up. It can also be from an ingrown hair, which is why another reason I don't pick or try to extract, pimples or ingrown hairs on the leg, because you end up causing trauma. And these dermatofibromas, they are triggered by trauma. So you always want to treat the bug bite with a calming cream like Soothe HC is a good option. By applying that right away several times a day, in fact covering it maybe with a hydrocolloid patch, you prevent yourself from scratching. It causes faster healing so that there's minimal trauma and it doesn't lead to discoloration or hyperpigmentation. Number 5, I never treat the forehead completely with Botox if somebody has low set brows. So the reason being is Botox is a muscle relaxant. So what it will do, it will completely relax the frontalis muscle, which is the muscle that is in our forehead. That's the muscle that lifts the brows. So if you knock it out completely in somebody who already has lower brows, you're only going to lower their brows further. And they're not going to be happy with you because now they feel very heavy. Their forehead is smooth, so it looks very great. It doesn't have any wrinkles, but on the flip side, now they can't really see. Their eyes, appear smaller. So it's always important to go very light with Botox on the forehead to allow movement of the brows, allow lifting of the brows. Now, it's always a compromise because sometimes when you do that, you may not get rid of all the wrinkles, but in somebody who is a little older, who has a little bit more of a stretched out skin, that has lower set brows, you don't want to knock out that muscle completely. Botox is like an art. You can give it to 10 different people and you get 10 different results. But generally the areas that lift the brows are the glabella and this area, the crow's feet. So if you're going for that lift, go after these areas. Try to not knock out the muscles that are responsible for lifting the brows because you will get the opposite reaction. Number 6, I never keep my laptop on my lap when I'm working because over time, the heat from the laptop can actually cause a permanent discoloration known as erythema ab igni, and this is very difficult to treat. We've tried lasers, vascular lasers to get rid of the discoloration, but it becomes a permanent discoloration. And so any type of heat on the skin for a prolonged period of times, it could be like a heating pad that you use on your back or on your stomach. It could be a heater that you put next to your legs. You always want to be aware that chronic continuous heat on the skin can cause this discoloration that looks like a net, and it is very challenging to remove even with the best of lasers. And lastly, number 7, I never exfoliate the night that I'm using my retinoid. And the reason being, exfoliants are great. They remove that dead skin layer, they allow other products to penetrate better, which can be a problem with retinoids because they are very powerful. And again, if you get too much absorption, you can get irritation, dryness, peeling, redness. Also, the combination of retinoids and exfoliants can be very drying and can disrupt your skin barrier. And once that happens, all sorts of things can happen. You can flare up with eczema, which are those itchy patches on your skin. It can flare up your acne. So you want to be really cautious about using a powerful exfoliant the same night that you're using a retinoid. Now, this is all relative, right? So if you're using a mild retinoid or, something that is very weak, then you might be okay. Especially if you're also using a mild exfoliant like mandelic acid or lactic acid in very low percentages, you might be okay. But if you're using like glycolic acid 10% and you're using prescription retin-A, you never want to do those two at the same time, in the same day. I like to use a powerful exfoliant 1 or twice a week, depending on how my skin's doing, and try to use the retin-A at least 5 times a week. I find that works for my skin. and just have to make sure that you're not going to overdo it. All right, so I hope that gave you some insight on things that a dermatologist would never do. Share this with a friend who might also be interested in this information. Comment below, let me know if you've experienced any of the things that I just mentioned, and if you want me to do a part 2, because I do have more things that I as a dermatologist avoid, again, based on my clinical experience of seeing patients and making some of those mistakes myself. All right, guys, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Until next week, thanks for tuning in.